I don't think it's going to be nearly as high of a scoring. When you take a look, and guys, I think this is a very interesting point. Long Beach, if you take out the first 8 or 9 minutes of the opening quarter, actually was a defensive game between Long Beach and Mount Sac, and it's one of the best in the business in the Mounties. You take out the long plays from Allo to seemingly Gilchrist starting the defense whole first quarter, but outside of that as a defensive game, these are two of the top defenses, even though those get overshadowed by solid running games and a couple of quarterbacks that have been electric. Allo's has been a deep play threat that really poses a huge concern for Riverside. But I have the Tigers winning by 10, 37-27, a couple of stalwart defenses that should, despite the point spread being so high, I think the big turnovers will give an opportunity for this thing to be a little bit more of a shootout than it really is. The winner of the game, I think, will be the Riverside Tigers, who moved to 28-0 at home. I think these teams are about as evenly balanced as they can be, maybe a slight edge to Riverside, but the difference is I think the home crowd's going to be rocking. Riverside knows what's on the table, and I think they are in perfect position, given that they rested. We mentioned that LA Harper game being a little bit of a closer contest than we would have liked. Well, Riverside sat three of their top tier receivers and their running backs this week, so I think they're rested, they're ready to play, and Tom Kraft has been in this situation before. He knows that it's a win or go home, and I think the Tigers aren't ready to go home.
The Mounties might not be ready to go home either, but here's what they're up against Saturday. Like you mentioned, the home crowd. Justin Allo to Gilchrist and Macon and Ryan Simpson, those have been fantastic threats for the wide receivers and for the offensive attack for Mount Sac so far this year. They're going up against the most talented secondary they're going to face. The athletes, the talent, it's certainly on the side of the Riverside Tiger, and they say defense wins championships. The Mounties got a pretty good defense as well. I think the defenses are just about even. I think RCC, Isaac Whitney, Denzel Foster against the Mounties secondary, which is certainly their defense's Achilles heel. I think Riverside's offense a little bit better than Mount Sac's. The home field advantage, like you mentioned, I'm going to go Riverside 31-24. They get it done. Mount Sac probably eliminated from postseason contention.
I'm actually curious, though. You've been a big fan of Lamarcus Tolbert.
Tolbert doesn't get enough carries simply to do damage against Riverside. He's a power back, and the other running backs that Mount Sac has, I mean, the offensive line it's good, but against the defense for Riverside, I just don't see the Mounties getting much of a running game going, and then that's going to exploit their passing game because I don't think the Mounties are going to be able to go deep all that often and be effective with it, and I think that the slot guys for the Mounties will be covered pretty well by that talented Riverside linebacking core as well.
That's amazing. I mean, you take a look at the commits that are on their way to the next level. Obviously, right now, Riverside has an edge in that, but Mount Sac is an organization that later on this season, they will get more commits, given that a lot of their guys are just trying to get the academic deal in order. It's going to be a blast. It really is, win or loss. One final point I do want to make here with this Riverside Mount Sac game is that I think if this game were to be played in any other stadium other than Wheelock, we could be looking at a far different game. But since
I agree. I think if you move the game to Mount Sac, I feel a lot more comfortable picking the Mounties. But I think home field advantage is big.
Riverside is about as even against horrible teams as any in junior college. At home, the difference is in their 3 games at Wheelock, they've outscored opponents 119-22, and most that's incredible. Have come in the fourth quarter with under 3 minutes to go. Those are 14 to 22 points, and over the last 3 weeks, Riverside averages 260 yards on the ground. That's number 1 in the state, and also have only given up 9 points per game over the last 3 weeks. I think that'll be the difference in that Riverside at home has just played some balls out football.
Yeah, it should be a good one Saturday night from Wheelock Stadium. Can't wait. Right here, 6 p.m. Pacific time on the National Sports Station, an affiliate of Spreaker.com. Let's take a deep breath. Let's move on back to prep football, high school football.
Wait, can we do other predictions for other JUCO games?
There's no other. There's nothing else to talk about. Long Beach is off this week. Fullerton, they've got their conference won. Nobody. I mean, here's the thing, guys. I think the winner of the National Central Conference and the wild card out of the National Central Conference are going to meet up in the SoCal Championship game, because Ventura and Fullerton will not be able to hang.
Not even close.
Not even close. What, Riverside, a 23-point win against Fullerton. Mount Sac, a 24-point win against Fullerton. Mount Sac, 27-3 against Ventura, who's in a playoff spot right now. Ridiculous. But it's just, like Jastrap said, it should be the top 4 teams, but it's not.
The top 4 teams all come out of one conference. That's frankly amazing. It really is.
It's too bad. Maybe one day they'll get back to that format. But as we move...
That does remind me, too. Is the conference kind of the Spurs? Are the winner of that conference kind of the Spurs in the West, in the NBA? Or the teams out of the North, frankly, would not be able to hang either?
I think the North has some quality. I think you just don't know with the North. I think there's just so many unknowns with the North because we never really see them play, and we're unsure year in and year out of the level of competition. Back in 2008, the format used to be an 8-team playoff here down in the South, and there'd be one playoff game up north, and the North team would sit for 3 weeks before the state championship game, while the South winner would go through a rural 3-game stretch to get to the state championship game. So it's always been a little bit unfair in junior college football. Don't ask me why. I don't make this stuff up. But
hasn't the South won almost all of those years, though? The championship game anyways, even though they're just beating each other up?
Well, you look at the last couple of years. You saw Butte win it last year, and San Francisco... you saw Butte win it last year, Bakersfield the year before, San Francisco the year before, and then Mount Sac repeated in 2009, 2010, then Butte again in 2008. So it's been very even. It's been north, south, south, north, south, north. So, I mean, it's just about even. I don't think you can really say one's better than the other.
Interesting. And the funny thing is, out of the North, everybody's beating each other up. So the fans that are on the American River bandwagon might as well hop their way off now, because San Mateo San Mateo has been able to make things interesting. I think American River nearly lost. We talked about them during the LA Harbor game. They won by 2 against a 2-4 unranked Siskiyous football team just last week. And, I mean, we talk about Riverside looking bad against LA Harbor. American River nearly lost their undefeated hopes against Siskiyous last week. So, out of the North, everyone's kind of losing or not really looking all that sharp. Meanwhile, out of the South, quietly, Mount Sac and RCC are looking like 2 of the best in the state, if not the best.
Dan, have you ever been to Siskiyous?
Never have. What's it like?
I was asking you.
It's going to be, I think out of the state championship game, the South runs away, kind of like the North did last year, because the only team that could potentially getting tested with the South, and if Fullerton didn't have their quarterback have a broken thumb after the championship game, I think they would have been able to keep that close. But the only team that could have potentially won last year was Butte. This year, no hype out of any of those ball clubs. They had Butte as the number 1 team coming in the state, and we've seen them collapse. I think the South, whoever wins out of the South, whoever wins this game, really, they have just won the championship very early. Understand that. But Mount Sac and Riverside are the 2 best teams, and the winner tonight will have the first seed and play their game at home in the playoffs, and very well could be on their way too.
Nick, I just absolutely love it if the game was tonight, but I think we're going to have to wait till Saturday at 6 p.m. Pacific time. Moving on to prep football now. Might I shift gears here on the discussion? Chris Sylvester, Dan Gadino, Nick Rice joining you as always. Olu, St. John Bosco. We'll get to that one last. We'll start with a very intriguing matchup that I'm sure we're going to be keeping tabs on Friday night. Jay Serra travels to Santa Ana Stadium. It's Mater Dei's first home Trinity League game, if you want to call it that. St. John Bosco, the only team in Trinity League to play their home games on campus. The rest of the teams, for whatever reason, don't. But it is a home game for Mater Dei, and as we saw the Jay Serra crowd last week, I'm sure Mater Dei will be able to outdraw the Lions faithful at home. I don't know. It's great offense versus great defense. They say defense wins championships. I think Mater Dei is the sexy pick here. But Dan Gadino, we'll start with you.
Well, is there anybody that's going to play defense in the Trinity League? It have to be Mater Dei. Mater Dei, like you said, plays defense, and they're the sexy pick. And I'm going to go with the sexy pick because that's what I'm attracted to. I like defense. I like a team that's going to stop the run. And Mater Dei is just 3 turnovers away from beating Bosco. If they wouldn't have turned over the ball, that's their ball game, and they're number 1 in the state, probably number 2 in the country.
Dan, I once dated defense too, by the way. So she's gotten defense has gotten around.
Well, I got Mater Dei winning it 28-21.
Nick Rice.
Wow. That's all. I think defense will definitely come to the forefront for a while, and then the cap will be busted off of the proverbial bottle here. And I think Jay Serra, I've been very impressed. Oh, and by the way, you mentioned that St. John Bosco plays the only home games in the Tree League. I find that hilarious, given that they have, no argument made, the worst stadium in the Trinity League. But Jay Serra and Mater Dei, interesting matchup. 2 teams that will have quarterbacks vying for a Division I offer, or that big Division I offer per se. But their offenses have quietly been 2 of the best in the Trinity League. Mater Dei and Jay Serra both in the top 5 of that. And they have also put up some monster points, especially against a stalwart defense in St. John Bosco. But at the end of the day, I think I've been more impressed with what Jay Serra had in store. Coming off of a loss, the Lions are looking to rebound. This is a team that's very confident, given that they thought they could beat St. John Bosco and had them close. They were leading in the 4th quarter, but then Sean McGrew decided to just run loose. I don't think that Mater Dei can run for 385 yards, and that may be what it takes to beat Jay Serra, especially off of a loss, returning to the quote-unquote home, but even though it's nowhere close. I think Jay Serra wins, squeaks out of this one, and that Mater Dei defense for the first time this season gives up over 30. The final score in the Trinity League, per se, final score 34-28.
Wow, so Nick's going with the upset there. Jay Serra getting it done against Mater Dei. Gotta agree with you, Dan. I really like how Mater Dei's defense matches up with Jay Serra's offense. Edward Vander, we know he's a beast, but I think Mater Dei will be able to stop him up. And Nick Robinson, he's a fine young quarterback, but let's face it, Ethan Aguayo and Isaiah Diego Williams, San Felipe, they're decent targets on the outside, but I just don't like the way they match up against Mater Dei's Division I potential secondary. I like the Monarchs in this one at home, 31-17. Surprising score, maybe, but I really do like how Mater Dei's defense matches up with the Jay Serra offense, and I think, as we saw last week, the Jay Serra defense has a lot of flaws in it. Jack Lowry going to have a career game in that one against the Jay Serra Lions. I feel bad for Jay Serra because they certainly belong in the postseason, but they might not win another Trinity League game, fellas.
Well, that was what I brought up during our game on last Friday. And I just feel like they're going to collapse. This is the type of team that just lets go too many punts. Too many. They did let go of a fake punt, a costly one at that. But this is a team that just lets go too many yards. whether it's on the pass or run. It's just a team that will